Hi and welcome back to another AS Media Studies tutorial. As I said before, technological convergence is an area that the exam frequently deals with. It comes up in either the January or the June exam pretty much every year, has done for the last 3 or 4 years. So this is something you really need to know about. This particular issue is dealing with the significance of technological convergence for institutions and audiences. So this is really an issue about Web 2.0. And if you don't really grasp it, it's pretty simple. It's this new phase of the internet, which you may find hard to believe that it wasn't always like this, but the ability to create your own media material and distribute it and share it through various hubs like laptops, it's one of the features of our age, and it didn't exist really 10 years ago. The mobile phone in your pocket is this great example of technological convergence because it can just do so much other than make a simple phone call. So you have to think about how this is affecting filmmaking at the production, marketing, and exhibition stages. The internet itself acts as a hub for many aspects of film. You can go on there, you can find posters, you can find YouTube videos on films, interviews with actors, clips from TV shows that have been put up there, find trailers, and then of course there'll be the official film and website and blog websites about the film. And then on top of this, you've also got audiences, the consumer himself becoming the producer, remaking their own films by creating extracts and putting new scores over them, posting them on YouTube. And this often leads to this phenomenon of answering videos back that people make on such sites. This almost constant creativity that is now allowed by all the gadgetry we have at our disposal, and the fact that we all have it at our disposal essentially in one hub, like the laptop, like the iPad. Now, up until this point, a lot of our issues that we've been looking at have been quite general, and the sixth issue of the 7 really focuses on issues that are raised by the targeting of national and local audiences, in our case specifically British, by international or global institutions. So this is really about how films are marketed and how their audience is targeted. But Slumdog Millionaire was originally just aimed at Asian audiences living in various parts of the UK. And of course fans of Danny Boyle films. This is the man who brought us Trainspotting after all, and a lot of people don't forget that. He was a very talented filmmaker with a, quite a nice, intriguing, interesting little British edge. So when the film was unexpectedly successful at film festivals, and then gets nominated for an Oscar, of course, this leads to another theatrical release, and it becomes a crossover hit, what they call a crossover hit, which is, an indie art house film, which essentially, by hook or by crook, by accident or by design, finds its way into the mainstream. But it's unusual, it has to be said, for British filmmakers to make this kind of leap. And it's certainly meant that Danny Boyle has got this increased kudos in America. I mean, Danny Boyle is the man who designed and directed the opening ceremony of this year's Olympics. But the British generally aren't very good at breaking Hollywood in that regard, because the British often make social realist films, what we call social realist films. This would be a very common British genre. One of the prime exponents of this would be Ken Loach, who's been making films for about 40 years and has generally always made films about the underclass, the downtrodden, people struggling against the odds to make a decent life for themselves. And these films tend to be aimed at, a local and a regional audience, which would never be enough for the major media players, who they have to make high budget movies, high concept films that appeal to the broadest possible audience. Not everybody wants to watch grey British council estates with people looking miserable on them. It does happen when we get an urban drama of the ilk of Shifty, which kind of part social realist and part kind of urban thriller, and very successful insofar as it was made with only £100,000, but managed to make £150,000 back at the cinema, which is no mean feat. To be in profit before you actually leave the cinema irrespective of the size of the actual budget or the size of the product itself, is still a very admirable achievement. However, it's not going to be enough for Hollywood, right? Hence the high budget, high concept films. Films like Star Trek that we've looked at that have these massive marketing campaigns behind them that are almost suffocate the target audience. You can't escape for the posters on the tube, billboards, the endless pop-ups on websites, taking over certain websites. But because they understand that a certain amount of kudos comes from having a connection to the independent world, it has become de rigueur really for major studios in the last 15, 20 years or so really to have their own independent offshoots, like a little boutique operation almost. So Miramax, the home of Quentin Tarantino, essentially, described once by Harvey Weinstein, it's one of its co-founders, as the house that Quentin built after the massive success of Pulp Fiction. Miramax was shortly after that bought by Disney. You have Fox Searchlight, which is obviously Fox's independent offshoot, or the, I believe, recently defunct now Paramount Vantage, which was Paramount's independent offshoot and was responsible for things like No Country for Old Men, I think, was a Paramount Vantage film. Okay, thanks for listening. Please check back for any upcoming tutorials.